Hi there, if you like thrillers or suspense novels, you're in the right place. Today's book is Unfaithful by Natalie Barelli. In this book, we meet Dr. Anna Sanchez. She's a teacher at a local college, Lockman Wide, and she's married to Louis, who's an artist, and they have two children, Mateo and Carla. So in the beginning of the book, we see where she's woken up very early in the morning with a call from Alex. So given the name of the book, I thought maybe something was going on with Alex and Anna. So Alex is Anna's student. He's a PhD student who's very brilliant. He's near genius. And so we learned that he has come to this small college because he wanted to work with Dr. Sanchez. Apparently he had read some article or some paper that she had written and insisted that he wanted to do his thesis here with her as his advisor. Even though he could have gone to any of the major universities, he chose to stay with her. So we see where her husband, Louis, is like, tell your students not to call this early in the morning. He didn't really make a big fuss over it, but because they're working on the thesis, I guess they have to kind of strike whenever ideas come to them. So anyway, so Anna goes into work. We meet her colleague, he's not a doctor, Jeff. I guess maybe he's a doctor, but he goes by Jeff, and he is the chair of the math department, and he is Anna's boss. So it seems like Jeff has a crush on her. He says flirtatious things, and she mentioned that one time when they were on a trip in Chicago, something nearly happened between them. However, they have laughed it off, and nothing has happened since then. And they seem to have a fairly good fun relationship, even though they work together in the math department. So one day, Alex had called Anna and wanted to bring the papers over, and these were notebooks that he was using to work on his PhD thesis. So she was wondering why he needed it, but Alex, even though he was a genius, he was kind of troubled. It's almost as if he was manic sometimes, he got obsessive sometimes, he got paranoid sometimes. And fortunately, on this day when he called to bring the books, that she didn't, because she forgot. She was rushing to do some stuff, and then when she headed over there and he asked for the book, she didn't have the book. So anyway, he was working on something different for his thesis, and then he ended up changing it to working on the Pentystone conjecture. And this was a solution or an equation that was derived by a mother-daughter couple. And it's a mathematical equation that if it was solved, it would change a bunch of different industries. But it has been unsolvable for a long time. There is a foundation that set up a prize money, I guess, to encourage math and things like that. And if you were able to solve that and you submit the solution to this foundation along with all the support and documentation, there was a prize money of $500,000. So Alex had asked her to work on it with him, and she really didn't want to, but okay. She decided that she would help him work on it. Funny enough that when she was younger, her mom had her working on the Pentystone conjecture as a punishment for sneaking out. And she herself is a math genius. She was a math prodigy as a child, and her parents, her mom and dad, were really super smart and were into math, had academic positions in math. And so she spent a whole summer working on the Pentystone conjecture, and she was never able to solve it. So when Alex had asked for her to work on it, she found that as an opportunity maybe to get another crack at it. And also if they did solve it, her name would be on, the solution, and they would publish whatever it was together. So she was like, okay. And so as time goes by, he goes through his moods. And then one night she woke up and she thought of something, and she called Alex to give him her thoughts on what she thought up. And within a few days, he was able to crack the code. And so he was able to solve it. She was excited because it was going to be publicity for the university, and it's going to help her career that her name is on this. And then also they're going to have that prize money. Anyway, so this day when she went over, he told her that he didn't want to put her name on it anymore. He did all the work. She barely did anything. And he was all twitchy, and it seemed like he may have been on something. And she was, saying, she was concerned about him and asking, what's wrong? What are you on? We should get you some help. But he didn't want her to touch him. And he was all, paranoid at this point. And so he went over by the window, and she tried to reach out her hand to him. And it seems apparently in this weird mood that he was in, he either fell or jumped through the window. So now she didn't know what to do. She looked out. She thought maybe, he was on the ledge or something. And it seemed he had died. He fell out the window and he had died. So now when she was about to leave, she heard noises on the stairs, so she couldn't leave. And so she noticed that there was an envelope that he had on in the apartment, and she opened it. And it was a formal letter, writing her to the effect that she was not going to be on the paper, and how she didn't have any significant contributions, blah, blah, blah. And so she was really disheartened, and she was torn as to what to do. So she decided that she was going to keep the work. She took the letter and tore it up. And, because if the police asked, how does she explain the fact that he's dead and now she has the work? So she snuck away, and, eventually, after a while, the police, didn't figure this out, that she was there. Although she didn't really kill him, she was paranoid about the police making a connection to her being there and maybe considering her as the killer. So she has that's in the background. Also, when this all was going down, she had suspected that her husband Louis was having an affair. So one day she went to a department event for somebody's retirement, and at that event she met a guy named Ryan. So he had distinctive blue eyes. He was really nice to talk to. He seemed to know that she had someone, because he was asking if Jeff was her husband or she had some partner or whatever. And she talked about, a little bit about her family. So he knew that she was married and stuff like that. So at some point during the night, they ended sneaking away. I guess she had some stuff to drink. And so they were going to get into it. And she changed her mind. She was like, oh my God, what am I doing? She kind of woke up a little bit. And the guy took a picture of her, which was really weird. It seemed like it was a setup. I was like, oh, this is no good. Why is this man taking a picture? You don't know him. So she was in a hurry to get out of there and get home, because this was something that she didn't want. So anyway, the next day she tried to track down this guy, and she found him. He claimed he deleted the photo, which I didn't trust anyway. And so she was like, okay. So Louis, in the meantime, Jeff, in the meantime, was supposed to be her boss and her friend, but she finds out that he had encouraged another teacher to apply for the professorship that she was applying for, and he was the one who encouraged her to apply, and she had considered him to be a good friend, only to find out that the professorship was awarded to Mila, who was a younger teacher, a beautiful girl, but very smart, just like her. And so she found out from Mila that she got the professorship, and it should have come from Jeff. So she found that really weird, and she was kind of upset. And she had an inkling that something was going on between Jeff and Mila. So she was like, she did all this hard work for nothing, and then now somebody else got the professorship. So she was kind of, down about that. So one day when she was in the office, she noticed that one of the, I think it was the dean, associate dean, was really mean to the admin, and her name was June. So she wanted to turn away and, for her not to see her, but she couldn't turn away fast enough. So anyway, she cracked a joke about him being a jerk or something to that effect. And so she was really grateful, because the guy had really humiliated her, and she looked like she wanted to cry. And so from there, they started having a little friendship. And so she would talk to June about her life and all the things that's going on. And so June would give her advice. So she began talking to her about what was going on between her and Louis and the affair and all that. So as it turns out, eventually, that, this person that he worked with in his artwork, he was having an affair with this lady, and her name was Isabel. He claimed there was nothing going on, but when Anna had gone to an opening at one of his openings, she noticed, this weird dynamic between the two, and she suspected that he was having an affair with her. She also found some receipt from a jewelry store, and he had bought her something recently, but she noticed that this wasn't the same thing. So she went to the jewelry store to try to figure out what it was. And lo and behold, he had bought Isabel this necklace. It was even more expensive than the one that he had gotten her. So she was really upset. So meanwhile, she's just, talking about the stuff to June. And she had talked to June about about Alex and all this stuff. And I was like, ooh, maybe not a good idea to be telling people your whole life. But anyway, she's supposedly her friend. So June had advised her to confront Isabel, talk to her, blah, blah, blah. So one day after they went out, she had a few drinks and she went to Isabel's place to confront her, and they got into an argument. She snatched the necklace and she left. So when she woke up the next day and she came to or whatever, she didn't really recall everything that's happened. Anyway, after that night, it was found out that Isabel turned up dead. So she was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I did it. I didn't do it. But she was suspected by the police of doing it because CCTV found her, tracked her movements, and she was at Isabel's place around the time that happened. So she was in heat with that as well. Also, at work, there was a sexual harassment suit that was being brought against her, which it seems like Jeff was all too happy about to bring to her. And so this was another thing that was problematic around the same time as well. Funny enough that the sexual harassment suit was being brought by, he didn't tell her by whom, but she thought it was Ryan. So she decided, in talking to June, June mentioned that if he took June mentioned that she need to figure out who it was or something like that. So she decided that she was going to figure out who it was. When she had talked to Ryan about deleting the photo that he had taken of her, she had noticed some pictures at this park, and she knew where the park was, so she decided that she was going to go there and see if she could see him. So he was the only person that would have had a photo of her. So this is where her mind was going. So she ended up tracking him down, and there was a huge revelation as to what was going down regarding the photo, because apparently the photo wasn't deleted. She was supposed to have a presentation of the Pentystone conjecture meeting, because she was going to submit it for the prize money. I think I mentioned the prize money that came along with solving the Pentystone. And so she was going to submit it and accidentally submit it because she had changed her mind. She went into the website to fill out all the information. Then she decided she's not going to do it. Maybe she's going to turn in the stuff to the math department, and accidentally submitted it. So now they submitted and accepted her solution, but she didn't have the supporting documentation for the work because they were Alex's. So they were hounding her to get the information for the supporting information. Not to mention that when the department found out, they were all congratulating her and all that. They were in a party. And then Mila, of course, was in the mix, wanting to talk to her about how she came to the solution. They wanted to write an article, and they wanted to put some supporting documentation in there as well. So there's a stress now about providing this stuff that she doesn't have. So she's trying to evade Mila as much as she can, and she's trying to evade the foundation as much as she can because she had nothing. So anyway, they had gotten to the point where she was going to do the presentation to the foundation, or at the school to the foundation. There was a bunch of people attending. And so when she had her stuff set up that she was going to talk about, she got a text on her phone, and she decided to look at it. And what do you know? It was a threat on her phone related to the photo. So she panicked and she pulled out all the wires. So she ended up having to do the presentation, without looking at anything. And so she was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? I think this happened before she went to try to track down who had sent the photos. So this is one thing that she had a bunch of things that really were stressing her out at the same time. So eventually the police called her in, and of course she was pulled into that investigation as well. And then there were some other things regarding Jeff that she suspected that he had done that she had to face as well. And also we find out at the end of the book that her husband Louis, who was, you know, we knew he had cheated, but otherwise he seemed to be a good guy, but he had a dark past, and he had done some really nefarious things that she didn't know about, and she was just finding out towards the end of the book. So as I was going through this book, I was thinking, okay, it was maybe a 3.5. Then we got to the point where Alex died, and then we got to the point of the affair, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll get into a 3.8. But then once we get to the end of the book, I was like, okay, this has to be a 4, because I did not see this coming. So definitely I recommend this one. It's not high action as per se, but definitely a good read, and it develops pretty well. If you have read or listened to this book, let me know your thoughts. Until next time.